Hi, I'm Sarah Brzozowski, and I'm a public service librarian assistant at Dow Jones Library at Huston-Tillotson University. My coworker, Ms. Velasco, is also a public service librarian assistant, and together we are co-hosting this Poetry Book Buzz event, where we're going to show you our favorite poetry collections on our ebooks and audiobooks, and some recommendations that we have, as well as we're going to show you how to navigate OverDrive and our library catalog. So to get started, we're going to show you how to do OverDrive, and then we're going to switch to our library catalog. So let me share my screen. Let me change my screen to OverDrive. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to actually go to the library's website first, which I have bookmarked. And on the library's website, so you'll see that this is the Huston-Tillotson website, and then under academics, you'll find library. And once you click that, it'll take you to our website. And then to find OverDrive on the Dow Jones Library website, you're gonna look for research, and it's the last one right here. It's ebooks and audiobooks. And so you click the link, and it's usually prompts you to log in, but because you've been on OverDrive so frequently, it didn't ask me to do that. So I'm going to try to sign out and see if it'll let me sign back in. If it doesn't, what you see, okay, so it redirects you. Okay, well, it usually redirects you to the sign-in screen, like the library sign-in screen, where it asks you for your library username and password, and that's where you're going to sign in. But then once you're signed in, you have access to all of our collections on OverDrive. So you can see what we have that we just added, the new ebooks and audiobooks we just added, as well as audiobooks, young adult fiction, biographies, business books, self-improvement, and then more. You can always type in a title of a book that you want to read, or if you're looking for something specific. If you just want to browse, you can click on, for example, you can click on just added, and it'll show you all of our new books that we have available. And then if you come across anything that says waitlist, that means that the book is currently being borrowed by another student or faculty member. So if you want to borrow that book next, you can place a hold, and then once you do that, you'll be placed next in line. So I'll show you what that looks like. You can say place a hold, and now it says that I'm number one on one copy of the book. So, and I'll get an email where it's going to let me know when the book is available. And then since we were talking about poetry, I'm going to show you how to access our poetry collection from here. So what I like to do is I'll type in poetry, like the subject that I'm looking for, and then all of the ebooks and audiobooks that we have on OverDrive will come up that's related to poetry. And then you can scroll through and see what we have available. And then you can see there's another page if you want to check out the other page. And then let's say that we're ready to borrow one of these books. So let's say we're going to do I Am the Rage. So we'll say borrow, and it'll ask you how many days you would like to borrow the book for, 7, 14, or 21. And since I'm presenting right now, I'm just going to say 7, borrow, and then it's going to give you a few different options. It's going to let you know when you have the book borrowed until, which date, and then the book's going to automatically renew, or not renew, it's going to automatically return once you're finished. But what you can do is right before the book is due, like 3 days before the book is due, you can go find it in your account and then renew it if it's available, if nobody else has it on hold. And I can show you how to access books from your account. So anyways, back to borrowing this book, you can see that now the option is you can read it now with Kindle. So if you have a Kindle device, you can click on this and the book will be sent to your Kindle, and then you can read it from there. Or you could read it in your browser, which is going to pull up another web browser here to read it. Or you can download an EPUB ebook, which downloads the book to the OverDrive app. Now, I'm on a computer, and what I had to do to download it to the OverDrive app was download the app from my computer. So I have Microsoft as the program. So I went to the Microsoft store and I looked for OverDrive and I downloaded it. But if you have Android or iPhone or any of the other types of programming, you can look for OverDrive and then download it to your whatever device you use. And then you can read the book from there. But since I'm on the web browser, I'll just show you what it looks like when you read it from the web browser first. So read in web browser, and you can see it's pulling up the book. And then from here, you can, like if you click in the middle here, it'll pop up different settings that you can try out. So I don't know if you can see it, but in the corner, in the right up-hand corner, there's it looks like a little page, and when you click on it, it changes the format to 1 page to 2 pages. So if you wanted to read, let me show you a better example. So you can see how this is like all 1 page, and if you click on it and click it again, it splits it up into 2 pages. So it just kind of depends on your reading style and how you like to read ebooks. And then you can also, if you can't or cannot see it, there is a little bookmark symbol that you click on and it will bookmark the page for you. And then there's a little doppel in the corner that you can click on and bookmarks will pop up where you can see the books that you have saved and the pages that you have saved, I should say. And then also under the settings, there's tips on how to work OverDrive. There's reading settings if you want to change, you know, the text font, or if you want to change the sizing. You want to have a different kind of background to, you know, make it easier on your eyes. And there's also chapters. So if you just want to jump ahead to a different chapter, you can jump ahead to another chapter here. And then if you can see this little mark right here, that's the bookmark mark. And you can see, if you can see it, I'm bookmarking and unbookmarking. But if that doesn't work, like I said, you can click it and then there's another way you can bookmark the page. And then if you also take this style, it'll move the book forward. Or you can click on the page on the corner and it'll also move the book forward. Or you can even grab it and drag it with your mouse, and that will also move the pages forward as well. And then if you see like 53%, that just means that you're 53% at the book that you've already read. And you can also jump back. It says 9%. Or what does that mean? And if I jump back, it's going to just tell me the history of what I've read. And I can also just jump back to where I was at. And then another good thing about OverDrive is that whenever you exit the program, when you open it again to read the book, it usually opens up at the area that you left off at. So on the page that you were last reading, which is really nice. And then I'm going to also show you the app and what the app looks like, because that's a little bit different. So let me change my screen to the app. So this is generally when you open the app, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a bookshelf and you're going to have your libraries here. I'm also part of Austin Public Library, so you can see that I have 2 different libraries set up for the libraries I can search through for OverDrive. And I've already downloaded an audiobook here to my bookshelf, but I just kind of want to show you a quick process on how that's done. So I'm going to click on Huston-Tillotson and search for poetry. And since I'm already borrowing this one, it won't let me borrow it again. But what I let me see if there's another audiobook. There we go. So let's say borrow. We're going to borrow for 21 days. And then it says download MP3 book. And then earlier when I was showing you the book, it said download EPUB file. So this is what happens when you download it. So you say download. And then it'll ask you to go to your bookshelf, or you can keep browsing if you want to download more books. So I'm going to go to my bookshelf and then I'm going to click on the book. And if you can hear that, that's my audiobook. And I can play it. I can skip forward 15 seconds. I can skip backwards 15 seconds. I can skip to the next chapter. I can skip back to the previous chapter. I like using it because of the nighttime feature. So if I'm sometimes I have trouble sleeping, and what I like to do is put on an audio book that, especially if they have a really soothing voice, it'll help me kind of drift off to sleep. And I can put on a timer for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, however long you need, and then it'll automatically shut off. So this is also really useful if you have OverDrive on your phone. I mainly use OverDrive on my phone instead of my computer. So it's the same concept. It might look a little bit different, but there's your bookshelf on there. You can click on the book, you can read it, you can return it. You can also listen to your audiobooks and put on the timer for when you want it to shut off. And if you want to change the speed of the voice of the narrating, you can change the speed, and then you can add bookmarks if you get to like a certain part that you want to make sure you jump back to. And then if we go back and then go back to Huston-Tillotson, I want to just kind of go over the account real quick and what that looks like. So if you ever get a hold available, or let's say you recommend a book, which I'll show you how to recommend a book. If you ever do that and you get a notification that we purchased the book or that your hold is available, it'll pop up usually right here, your notifications, which you can click on, and then it'll let you know what book you have that you can borrow at that time. And then if you click on this little bookshelf here, it'll also just kind of take you straight to your account and what that looks like. So, and then if you click on my account, it's the same thing over here. So you can see the books that I have checked out. You can also see here how many more books I have available to borrow, as well as what I have on hold. So look, if you can see the book that I put on hold earlier, that I placed when I placed it on hold, as well as like how long the wait time is before I'm going to be able to read that book. You can suspend it if you don't want to read it right now, and maybe you want to put it on hold for later, or you can even edit your email if you wanted the notification to be sent to a different email, letting you know when the book is available. I like wish lists because the wish list allows you to save other books that you may want to check out later or place on hold. And if you go to, so I'm going to go back to the poetry part, poetry. And this little button down here, this is kind of what the bookmark button looks like too, without the plus sign. But if you ever see a little symbol like that without the plus sign in it, that means bookmark. But the little bookmark symbol with the plus sign means wish list. So now I can click on this, and now that means it's been added to my wish list for later. And so I can go back to my account and go to wish list and see that that book was added to my list for later. You can also check out rated titles if you rated anything. If you recommended any books, will pop up right here, which books you recommended and if they were purchased or not, or if you're still waiting to see if they were purchased. You can also see what date you recommended it on, and if it was purchased, if it's available, then you can borrow it, just like this one. And then you can also look at the history, and that's the history of the books that you have looked at or checked out before as well. And there was, I was like, there's one more thing I was going to show you. So I was also going to show everybody how to recommend a book if you wanted to recommend one. So let's say we go down our poetry list, and you can see that underneath the poetry list, they are at OverDrive is showing us a list of books that are not currently in the OverDrive collection. And if there's any that you're interested in, you can ask to recommend. Basically, it's asking the library, you're recommending the book to the library to purchase. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm not going to recommend any of the books that it did show, but good example would be Rupi Kaur. So you can see that we have one of her books. And I've already recommended this one. So let's say I want to recommend this one too. So I'm going to say recommend. And then the notification now popped up saying that I recommended the book. And if the library purchases the book, I'm going to get an email saying that they've purchased it and that I can borrow it. And I think that's pretty much a brief overview of how OverDrive works. You can also do stuff like click on Kindle books and see what books are available via Kindle if you want to read specifically on your Kindle and not on the OverDrive app. Sometimes you're going to see something called Libby, and Libby is the same thing as OverDrive. It's just a different name. So there's OverDrive. OverDrive was the original name, and then it eventually updated to Libby, but either one, it will work just fine. So just in case you ever see anything that says Libby and you're like, that's kind of confusing, Libby and OverDrive are the same thing, and you'll be able to access either one of them with your HT account. And that's what it says here, Libby. So, but you can also see here, OverDrive. And yeah, so I think I've showed you everything that you need to know so far about OverDrive. And if you ever have any questions or concerns, or if you want to recommend anything, you can always chat us or send us an email at library@htu.edu. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Ms. Velasco to discuss our library catalog. Okay. Unless, Carla, if you want me to just navigate, I can do that too. Okay, I'll do that. And I'm gonna mute myself. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brzozowski. Thank you. And I also wanted to let people know, if you're reading on your tablet, what happens, and I really like how Ms. Brzozowski explained this, but for me, I read a lot on my tablet, so I have to download OverDrive, and then to actually read the book in the app, it would be Libby. So just in case folks are like reading in their tablet and not finding the application. So let's start talking about our library catalog. So there's another option of finding ebooks or books or articles that we have, and it's the library catalog. And we wanted to show it to you all because some of the books that we're going to be presenting on, we actually received them from the library catalog. So if we can go ahead and go to the library website, Ms. Brzozowski. Okay, so when we're in the library website, we're going to scroll all the way down. Remember that when you get into the account, you're gonna get into the HTU website and then click academics and then click library, and that's how you get here. So you scroll all the way down, and let's say we're looking for poetry books. So we'll just type in poetry. And we're looking for specifically an ebook. So we'll see what pops up after Ms. Brzozowski clicks on that. So the first book, let's see. So you can see that we have view ebook, but we also have other options available on the left. So you can either look at the format, so distinguish between format, all format, article, book, if you want an ebook, if you want a print book, and right now, given the COVID-19 pandemic, print books aren't available, so ideally it would be an ebook. And we can also search by subject, which will appear below, by publication year, within 5 years, within 10 years. So you have different options by language, which is definitely another nice option to have. So if we go a little bit up and we click on this first ebook, let's say we want to check this ebook out. So we click view ebook. And then let's see the options that we have. So to actually view the ebook, we have a couple of options. The first is PDF full text. So if we want to look at PDF full text, and we click on that and see what pops up. Okay, there we go. So it took a little bit, but this is what it looks like in PDF format within EBSCO. You can see on the left is navigation bars. So the contents, the introduction, the different chapters within the book. And then there's options on the top. So If you want to save a page, email pages to yourself, print pages. If you want to cite, if there's a word in the dictionary that you don't understand within the ebook that you want to check out in the dictionary, you can also export, get the permalink, or connect to Google Drive. And a lot of these settings are related to creating an EBSCO account. For example, if we click on full download, it tells us that we need to sign into our EBSCO account or to create an account. While our students don't necessarily come with an EBSCO account, let's say, yes, you all have a library account, but we don't have an EBSCO account. But creating the EBSCO account is very, very simple. We can create an account which just needs your first name, your last name, your email, and create a password. Once you create an account, you have the ability to save pages, email pages. You can still cite whether you create an account or not, but you can download the PDF completely. And then whether you want to read this on your tablet, on your phone, you can try to pass it to yourself within those different platforms once you download it. So I would really recommend creating an EBSCO account. It's very simple. You don't need to pay anything and you have access to these different tools. So if we click at the little X and we go back, the other format is EPUB full text that you can look at the ebook in. And if we click that, let's see. This is pretty much similar to the other option where you have the actual book and the navigation tools on the left, the navigation bars in the top, and the full download option, which is downloading the book, and then you can view it in whatever format you prefer, Adobe, eBooks, any application, whether on your computer, your iPhone, your Android, whatever device that you have. So those are the different options that you have within our library catalog to check out books, but also to download them, to view them, cite them. I definitely recommend the cite option for students. If we click on that, let's say that you need to read this specific book for a class, or you just want to have it cited. You can look at whatever citation format you need, and EBSCO does this automatically for you. So you don't have to go through all of the trouble or the messiness that sometimes citing different sources it takes, right? So we have those different formats available for you there. Thank you, Ms. Brzozowski. And that's essentially how checking out a book with an ebook, an article, works within the library catalog. As I said, you can search within subjects, you can search a title, an author, and it's a very simple way. And if you need any help, we're always here for you. You can chat us or email us, and all of that information is in the library homepage, our email address, and also the little chat button that pops up. So feel free to let us know if we have any if you have any questions, And we're gonna go ahead and start with our amazing first time virtual book buzz. And Ms. Brzozowski is gonna start talking about the different books that she enjoyed from our OverDrive, but also from our library catalog. Ms. Brzozowski, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. That was very informative, and I can see how everyone's going to be able to especially use that citation button. So I'm going to switch it over to our PowerPoint and start our book buzz. Okay. Okay, so my first book that I have selected for our book buzz event is The Tradition by Jericho Brown. So The Tradition by Jericho Brown details the normalization of evil and its history at the intersection of the past and the personal. Brown's poetic concerns are both broad and intimate, and at their very core, a distillation of the incredibly human, what is safety? Who is this nation? Where does freedom truly lie? Brown makes mythical pastorals to question the terrors to which we've become accustomed and to celebrate how we survive. Poems of fatherhood, legacy, blackness, queerness, worship, and trauma are all propelled into stunning clarity by Brown's mastery and skill. The Tradition is a cutting and necessary collection, relentless in its quest for survival while reveling in a celebration of contradiction. So I really like The Tradition by Jericho Brown because he has a really, really beautifully style of writing traditional poetry. So he incorporates sonnets and rhyme couplings, and I really enjoyed The Duplex, and that was my favorite poem out of the book. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little excerpt from The Duplex next, and then discuss some other books that I recommend for traditional poetry that are related to Jericho Brown. The Tradition is also really a really an honest account of his life, and he blends his personal and political experiences together into this collection. So I think anyone interested in especially current events in today would um, really like Jericho Brown's work. So let me read the poem. So this is called Duplex. A poem is a gesture toward home. It makes dark demands I call my own. Memory makes demands darker than my own. My last love drove a burgundy car. My first love drove a burgundy car. He was fast and awful, tall as my father. Steadfast and awful, my tall father hit hard as a hailstorm. He'd leave marks. Light rain hits easy but leaves its own mark, like the sound of a mother weeping again. Like the sound of my mother weeping again, no sound beating ends where it began. None of the beaten end up how we began. A poem is a gesture toward home. And that's The Duplex. So these are some other books that I recommend if you are interested in reading The Tradition. I recommend The Tradition, but then I also recommend For Everyone by Jason Reynolds. This was the audiobook that I briefly played earlier. I didn't play a lot of it, but if you like the personal and political experiences blended together, Jason Reynolds is amazing. So I would definitely recommend listening to his audiobook. And if you like other types of traditional poetry, Wade in the Water by Tracy K. Smith. I really enjoyed that one as well. And then Disconnected Poems and Stories of Connection and Otherwise is a collection, it's an anthology of different poems and short stories. And what the editor did was she asked the different authors to write a short story, and then she picked another author to create a poem based off that short story. So I really like how she blended all of that together. And that is The Tradition. And now I'm going to discuss The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And this is what it's about. Xiomara Batista feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood. Ever since her body grew into curves, she has learned to let her fists and her fierceness do the talking. But Xiomara has plenty she wants to say, and she pours her frustration and passion onto the pages. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. And she pours her frustration and passion onto the pages of a leather notebook, reciting the words to herself like prayers, especially after she catches feelings for a boy in her bio class named Amon, who her family can never know about. With mommy's determination to force her daughter to obey the laws of the church, Xiomara understands that her thoughts are best kept to herself. So when she's invited to join her school slam poetry club, she doesn't know how she could ever attend, much less speak her words out loud. But still, she can't stop thinking about performing her poems, because in the face of a world that may not want to hear her, Xiomara refuses to be silent. So The Poet X, I recently read this a couple of months ago, and it's become a fast favorite of mine. I can definitely see why it's an award-winning novel. It has won many awards. Elizabeth Acevedo herself is a slam poet. So the way that she incorporates the verses of the poetry into each other and how it flows is just like, it's like you're not even reading poetry, honestly. It's like you're reading a story or watching a movie just unfold. So I really enjoyed The Poet X, and we don't have a copy of the audio version, but if you ever get a chance to listen to the audio version, I highly recommend it. Elizabeth Acevedo narrates the book herself, and she just brings all of the characters to life, and it's really something special. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from the book next. Okay, so this is called When I'm Done, Elizabeth Snaps and Miss Galliano Smiles. And of course, Chris has a comment about my poem's complex narrative structure or something like that. I can't remember the last time people were silent. while I spoke, actually listening, not since I'm on. But it's nice to know I don't need him in order to feel listened to. My little words feel important for just a moment. This is a feeling I could get addicted to. And so you can see here how the author incorporates like the titles of the poem with the rest of the poem. And so other books that I recommend based off of the poet X would be, I'm going to go backwards here. Clap When You Land is Elizabeth Azevedo's other verse book written in verse poetry. And I think that this is another great little contribute to verse poetry as well. And then The Bronx Masquerade by Nikki Grimes. This is an audiobook version. So if you like stories about, high school, this is another good one that I recommend. And then Punching the Air by E.B. Zaboy and Yusef Salam. That's another poetry book written in the verse style. Okay. So this is my last book that I am presenting today. This one is called Muted by Tammy Charles. And for 17-year-old Denver, music is everything, from writing to performing. When Denver and her best friends Dolly and Shaq finally get their chance to meet the famous R&B star Sean Mercury Ellis, they are more than ready to sing their way into a contract. Merc gives them everything: parties, perks, wild nights, plus hours and hours in the recording studio. Even the painful sacrifices and the lies they have to tell are all worth it, until they're not. Denver begins to realize that she's trapped in Merc's world, struggling to hold on to her own voice. As the dream turns into a nightmare, she must make a choice: lose her big break or get broken. Inspired by true events, Muted is a fearless exploration of the dark side of the music industry, the business of exploitation, how a girl's dreams can be used against her, and what it takes to fight back. So I just recently read Muted by Tammy Charles as well, and I was just blown away by the whole book. It's also written in verse, just like the poet X, so it easily flows from page to page. I really like how Tammy Charles incorporates like text messages into the poetry, and you can really just kind of step into the world of Denver and her friends. I am going to say that if you do read this book, there are some trigger warnings that I should tell you about. This book is heavily influenced by the R. Kelly survivor story. So if you're familiar with that story or familiar with R. Kelly in the news and anything going on with him, this story is heavily inspired by that. And the trigger warnings include rape, manipulation, grooming, and more. It's pretty heavy content. But if you are interested in just kind of wanting to read a fictionalized version of the R. Kelly survivor stories or the documentary, Muted by Tammy Charles is excellent. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from the novel. Okay. Angelic voices, lyrically known as "Whoo, those girls can sing," locally known as "But who really gives a damn?" Talent dripped through our pores, dreams of fame as real as starlight, but none of it mattered in that town, that school, those mountains, my family. In Shahola, nobody won Grammys or billboards or VMAs. That's why as soon as I saw that my favorite artist of all time was going to be just 2 hours away, it was obvious this was meant to be. So my goals were hella clear: be bold, get seen, be heard. This was our chance. How did I know? Because the universe told me so. Okay. And now I'm going to talk about other recommendations. So Muted, I feel like, is very like feminist and empowering and inspiring. So if you want to read more feminist or women empowerment type of novels that are related to poetry, I recommend Women of Resistance: Poems for New Feminism, which is a collection again by multiple authors. There's Virgin by Annalisa Sotelo. And then there's also Homebody by Rupi Kaur, and that is her latest that she came out with last year. And that's it for my end of the books. And now I'm going to pass the microphone over to Ms. Velasco. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brzozowski. All right, we're going to start talking about other books. Oh, I'm so sorry. That was a big tongue twister for me. So the first book that I want to talk about is Manteca, an anthology of Afro-Latinx poets. Containing the work of more than 40 poets, equally divided between men and women who self-identify as Afro-Latino, Manteca is the first poetry anthology to highlight writings by Latinos of African descent. Many pieces rail against a system that institutionalizes poverty and racism. There are love poems to family and lovers. Music permeates this collection. This is a really beautiful, beautiful collection that only has Afro-Latinx poets. And I think because of that, it's very unique and it's an amazing, amazing resource that we have within our library catalog. Now I'm going to cite an excerpt that I thought was very beautiful, and it mixes a little bit of English and a little bit of Spanish. It's called Pedacito de mi alma, which means piece of my soul. La historia te escribió para que camines sola, y en el camino nutras a muchos más. I never wrote this letter. Instead, I planted in your leri, tu cabeza, your altar, your head, brown kernels. I planted a seed of life for life. Yours, many. I planted a seed of life, even knowing that your journey through life redefines life itself. Life as we knew it has changed in the midst of the ever. What could I give you to take to uncertainty but life itself? What could I give you to take from Africa to the new land, if new, if land? I never wrote this letter. Instead, I sent rice to a land that will be yours. If land, if yours. All right, let's do the next text. So these next three texts are three different texts that kind of align together. So they're written by the same author, and they also have the same rhythm, the same style, and they have different themes. So Kisika Salgado is a Salvadoran poet, and she addresses her life in a lot of really deep themes within these three different books. And the first one is Hermosa, which means beautiful. In this book, Kisika Salgado brings forth a life in multitudes as she writes about her home of Los Angeles, lingering love, the healing power of friendship, childhood memories, complicated deaths of people who were difficult to love, the culture, gender norms in her Salvadoran family, a journey of firsts, of mistakes, of celebrations, of the love, the crush, the disaster, the rebuilding, and the never-ending cycle of growth. Now we can recite the excerpt. Your lipstick. You're always wearing it on purpose. You like the way it colors your face. Your mother only wore hers for very special occasions. The same tube of soft pink every time. Well, you're not like that. You have all the colors of a sunset in your makeup bag. The boys ask you questions. Is that for me? Can I kiss you? Can those lips be mine? And you remember when your mouth was just a mouth, not a target or a weapon or some kind of home for lost men. You continue wearing your red, deep red, hot pink, violet, burgundy, blood red, blood orange, blood. Where's the party? Someone asks when you board the bus. You don't smile. You are the special occasion. You deserve more than one tube of soft pink smeared timid across your lips. You reapply your blood. You are a bruja now. You are the one that makes everyone in the novela cry. You look out the bus window. You wear victory so well. All right. Now, let's go to the second text. This one is called Tesoro, and Tesoro means treasure. Tesoro is a story of family, survival, and the formative power of the woman in Salgado's life. It is a telling of the balance between love and perseverance. Tesoro is an unearthing of these sacred connections that makes a person whole, the treasure we forever keep with us when we learn from those we love, when we mourn those we've lost, and what grows in between. A trigger warning, a lot of these poems, a lot of them can have very, very sensitive topics such as sexual assault, abuse, trauma. So just keep that in mind, especially when you're reading Treasure, which is Tesoro, and Corazón, which is heart. And we'll talk about Corazón after we talk about Tesoro. Las Locas, which means the crazy girls or the crazy woman. The tia that threatened to jump off the fire escape if her husband left to the bar. The one who chased her husband around the lemon trees with a frying pan. The one who pretends to faint whenever she needs her son to stay. The one who drinks beer and plays poker. The one who had an affair. the prima who left. Oh, I lost my train of thought there. The prima who let the ex-husband keep the children. The prima who has taken too many husbands to count. The one who joined the army and left for years. The one who doesn't show up for family parties. The one who talks about dating women without hesitation. The childless one who drinks margaritas on Mondays. The one that asks her mother if she regrets not having more lovers. The one who lives out of her suitcase. Who doesn't cook or clean. Who forgets to call. Who wears red lipstick and sheer shirts to Thanksgiving dinner. The chismosa no one tells scandals to because she writes everything down. Tell me about that time again, where you were free, when you made a mess and were forgiven, the way that we forgive the men. All right, let's talk about Corazón. Corazón is a love story. It is about the constant hunger for love. It is about the feeling that hunger with another person and finding that sometimes it isn't enough. Salgado creates a world in which the heart can live anywhere, her brown body, her parents, home country, a lover, a toothbrush, a mango, or a song. It is a celebration of heartache, of how it can ruin us, but most importantly, how we always survive and return to ourselves whole. Now let's recite the poem. And evidently, Corazón, which means heart, is about love stories and heartbreak. My depression has questions. And if he loves you, what is next? Will you warn him about all your crying? It happens too often to ignore. He will be telling you something about a coworker, and suddenly there it is, the river behind your grandmother's house, winding down your face, your throat, your lap. Are you going to ask if he can swim? Or will you wait, hoping he drowns like the rest? Very deep about mental health. And I have a couple of recommendations along the same themes of femininehood, womanhood, feminism, culture, family, love, mental health, and a lot of trauma, to be honest, which are a couple of themes that come up. And these books are really, really deep and really heartfelt. The first one is Black Girl Call Home, and this is a fairly new book that came out, which has many, many awards. So I definitely recommend this text. The second one is The Breakbeats Poets Volume 4, which is Latinx. And this has a mix of Latinx poetry that varies from different ages, groups of people, and it is also very, very much ingrained within the Latinx culture in Latin America. And of course, then you have the collected poems of Audre Lorde. And this is a collection of all her poetry throughout all of her life. Not necessarily every single poem, but the majority of them are within this collection. And Audre Lorde is a fabulous, fabulous academic, and I definitely recommend her work. And essentially, these are all of my recommendations. Latinx, I believe, is within the library catalog, and Manteca is also in the library catalog, and the rest are in OverDrive. And I think if no one has questions, which we haven't received any questions so far, we can go ahead and end the session. Ms. Brzozowski and I have had a wonderful time presenting our books. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, or if you just want to chat us and recommend some books, chat us at the library website or email us at library@htu.edu. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all. Bye.